So I'm former Alderman Dick Simpson, and today this is an exciting occasion on which we're opening this state-of-the-art shelter for the homeless. We're going to be serving each night 70 men, 24 hours a day. We will serve over 250 men this year. They'll receive a bed, shelter, food, on-site wraparound services, and health care, which will help them transition back into society. Many will go on to live in the 154 apartments that Northside Housing provides. Now, this is not the last of the wonderful new homeless shelters to open, but the first to serve as a model for all the ones that will be built in Chicago in the years ahead. When I began with Northside Housing 40 years ago now, we were volunteers. We prepared meals, we stayed overnight with our guests in church basements and slept on pallets in the floor. You'll see that today's facility is quite different from that. It's a shelter which costs $6.9 million to build. It operates at $1 million a year to operate, and it would not have been possible without the support of our Mayor, Brandon Johnson, Alderman Haddon, who struggled to make this come into reality, and you will meet others in just a moment. Beyond the city government funds, we raise several $100,000 a year from businesses and foundations and individuals, and we appeal to all of them to continue their support. This wouldn't have been possible without years of hard work by Peter Marchese, who's our board president, Duncan Ward, who is our executive director, and the dedicated members of our board. Many of whom are here. Could you hold up your hand, all the board's members, staff? These are the people who made it possible. And I want to give a special shout out to the tireless efforts of Alderperson Maria Haddon. She mobilized 70% of the support in her community, and as a former alderman, I know how difficult it is to open a new shelter in your ward. She and the good people of the 49th Ward recognized how important it is to address the dire problem of homelessness in our city today. In this winter day in the city of Chicago, let the opening of this new shelter be a beacon of hope. We want to thank as well Dan Murrow, Luke Johnstone from the firm of Winston & Strawn, who did the pro bono legal work, Meredith Muir, Alicio Laria, Victor Gutierrez from the Department of Housing, who got the building permits to allow this to happen, Mark Valenti, Jack Scappin, Sam Duncan, Dan Meals from Valenti Builders, who literally constructed the building itself to the highest quality on time and on budget. And last of all, an enormous thank you to Sean McGuire from Gensler Architects, who worked 1,000 hours to make this building a reality. Now we will have the brief remarks from the officials who are here to cut the ribbon with us and open the shelter. First will be Mayor Brandon Johnson, then Alderwoman Maria Haddon, State Senator Mike Simon, Chief Homeless Officer Cindy Soto, Housing Commissioner Lisette Castanda, and the Family and Support Services Commissioner Brandy Kanazi. Immediately afterwards, as I say, we will cut the ribbon, tour the shelter, and all be available. The tour is going to be led by our fabulous Executive Director, Duncan Ward, who will guide you through the facility. Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Alderman Dick Simpson, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. What an incredible moment this is for our city. You know, when you were alderman in the years following, there has been a consistent effort calling for equal rights and better treatment of people, particularly those who are unhoused. We thank you, Alderman Simpson, for your constant struggle and commitment to humanity. And on behalf of a very grateful city, we are appreciative of your leadership and your work. I am thrilled to join you all and other city leaders that are here today. Thank you to the Alder of the 49th Ward, Alderwoman Maria Haddon, Senator Mike Simmons, to our DFSS Commissioner, Kanazi, Chief Homelessness Officer, Cindy Soto, and then of course our Department of Housing Commissioner, Constaneda. all of you are commitment to ensuring that the people of Chicago experience dignity and the ability to pursue their vibrant lives. Every single human need is a human right, and housing, of course, is top amongst them. Together, we are dedicated to expanding access to safe and affordable housing across our city and ensuring there is shelter space for our unhoused neighbors. We cannot meet this goal alone. We do this work in partnership with humanitarian aid groups, philanthropists, faith community organizations such as NSHSS. The city's Department of Housing was honored to support NSHSS with a $6.7 million bond funding the purchase of this building, as well as for the complete renovation of this building, ensuring that this space can serve the community for years to come. You know, NSHSS recognizes the need for safe and dignified shelter for men experiencing homelessness, for whom shelter capacity has historically been most limited and often available only in large congregate settings. This space directly answers the need with 70 non-congregate shelter beds for unhoused men, along with 24-hour supportive services, on-site wraparound services that ensure that transition to long-term housing is available and possible. With Northside Housing owning and operating the shelter building, shelter services will operate 24/7, and clients are welcome to stay the night and throughout the day. They don't have to get up and go each morning. It gives them the ability to find true stability. They can continue to access supportive services, meals throughout the day, and that, of course, is based on their needs. I'm thrilled that we are able to come together and open this shelter that will have an incredible direct impact on our community. Supportive and trauma-informed spaces such as these have the power to heal our communities and put unhoused people on the pathway to permanent housing. My administration is committed to creating these transformative and supportive services throughout our city. As part of our commitment, we recently announced a transition to a one-shelter system to better focus our efforts and add 3,800 beds to DFSS's homelessness services system. The one shelter system will be a unified and equitable shelter system for new arrivals and unhoused residents, ensuring that we can eliminate stay limits and provide more options to everyone. Additionally, through my administration's $1.25 billion housing and economic development bond, we are equitably and strategically investing in commercial and housing development, especially in underserved communities. And finally, the bond proceeds have already been issued to community projects in Austin and Inglewood to ensure those communities have economic opportunities and neighborhood vitality. The implementation of our Cut the Tape initiative, the city will speed up the development of housing and commercial projects by cutting through red tape that has been hindersome to the process. Cut the Tape will not only spur city-funded projects, but will encourage developers and investors to do business with the greatest freaking city in the world, the city of Chicago. And as I said, housing is a human right. We are committed to working through any challenges and obstacles to uphold the right and ensure that the people and the families of Chicago have somewhere safe, affordable, and stable to live, to thrive in our great city. I'm deeply, deeply grateful to the NSHSS team, our community partners, our city departments who have come together to make this newest shelter a reality. I look forward to our continued partnership as we address our housing needs and ensure that Chicago truly remains the best place on the planet. And with that, the best alderman to ever exist in the 49th Ward. We happen to have two of them. You heard from the first one, now you get to hear from her, Alderwoman Maria Haddon.
Thank you all for joining us here this morning. I'll tell you a little story, because I'm good at storytelling, but I'll try and keep it brief. So the journey for Northside Housing Support Services to be here with us today on Friday, having opened their doors to receive 28 Chicagoans, to make sure that they have shelter and a place to stay, right? Not to have to leave every day in the morning, but like real shelter, their own space, right? Resources, wraparound services, so that somebody that's just a little down on their luck has the support they need to find their path to permanent housing and getting back on their feet. It started in 2020. So we all went through a lot of challenges with the pandemic. We've gone through challenges with our kind of economic situation as well. But in 2020, this 40-year-old organization with a fantastic staff, board, a history, right, of helping people who oftentimes nobody else wants to help, right? This organization, they were homeless. They didn't have a space. Changing development, landlords who see another opportunity to redevelop a spot had pushed this fantastic organization on whom we rely on here in the city of Chicago, right? To be clear, the city of Chicago may fund and give grants to these organizations, but without organizations like Northside Housing Support Services and many of our other partners who provide services to people experiencing homelessness, we would not be able to say that the city of Chicago houses people experiencing homelessness. We wouldn't be able to say that at all. So this organization, whom we rely on and have relied on for decades, they needed a place to stay. So they were calling around to different wards. They were looking for spaces. And if you're not familiar with the 49th Ward, we're predominantly Rogers Park. We're very dense, and we don't have a lot of spaces, certainly not a lot of big spaces. We had as many as 40 people experiencing homelessness living in Toohey Park at the time. So over these last couple of years, it was a struggle of figuring out how we were going to provide shelter for people who needed it, how we were going to find a space for an organization that needed it. And it was through the fantastic work of the folks over here to my right, our commissioners for Department of Family and Support Services, Brandy Kanazi, Commissioner Lisette Castaneda, and their wonderful teams in the Department of Housing and Family and Support Services, that we were able to work to make this opportunity possible. We've had fights.
What a surprise.
We've had fights. Tears may have been shed. I don't think any blood was spilled, but the construction crew perhaps. But we're here today, and it's because that every single person, right? Peter, Duncan, Dick, the city's teams, we all believe that housing is a human right. We know that we in the same situation, all of us are one emergency away from experiencing homelessness, right? You don't know what's going to happen in your life. We know that we need not just warm, safe, and dry spaces, but trauma-informed spaces with staff that are paid fair wages, right? Who know what they're doing, who can work with our neighbors to help them figure out whatever barriers are in the way for them getting back out on their feet. And this organization, with their 40-year history, has a fantastic record of doing that. So while it took a little blood, sweat, and tears and working through a lot of community processes, I'll say that the 49th Ward, the residents of the 49th Ward, myself and my team, Leslie, Shanika, Kyle, like everybody who's here, we worked very hard to make sure that our community was going to be a welcoming community. So it is an honor and a privilege to be here. And what I'll lastly say is that this is the opening, and we're going to cut the ribbon, but the work isn't done. We know that today's 50 degrees, but it's going to get cold again. So for anybody who is interested, if you're interested in volunteering, if you're interested in being a part of supporting individuals experiencing homelessness, feel free to reach out to our office, reach out to Northside Housing. It took a lot of work to get here. It's going to take a lot of work to keep it, to make sure that, right, this space stays here, and to make sure that we can continue to work to fulfill the unmet needs. Because while we're providing 70 spots, right, that will serve over 250 men, right, over the course of a year, that's still just a fraction of the people who we need to serve here in the city of Chicago. So I thank you all for being here, and for those continued partners in the work that we have to do. We've got a great friend. We're so lucky to be represented in Springfield by Senator Mike Simmons.
Thank you so much, Alderwoman Haddon, for giving me an opportunity to share remarks and be here today. First of all, I got to say, State Senator Mike Simmons. I represent the 7th District, which covers Rogers Park, Edgewater, Uptown, Lincoln Square, North Center, Wrigleyville, Arcadia Terrace, and Andersonville. And the number one issue right now on the far north side of Chicago is the loss of affordable housing. It is affecting those that don't have housing. It is affecting those that are low and middle income. It is affecting longtime residents. And it is even affecting those who are property owners and who are homeowners who are being priced out of the city. This is a crisis. And so I am so happy to be here on the Monday morning with Mayor Johnson. Thank you so much, Mayor, for believing in housing as a human right and walking the walk. Thank you so much to Alderwoman Maria Hatton for believing in this work and working around the clock to preserve and build new affordable housing on the far north side of Chicago, in Rogers Park and in surrounding areas. And thank you so much to Northside Housing and Supportive Services for believing in this work for as long as I've been alive to ensure that our neighbors are not only able to have a roof over their heads, but are able to actually live dignified lives where they have access to trauma-informed services that can actually help them to repair the harm that has been caused by systems that have failed them time and time again. This is a huge morning that we are here today to celebrate this opening, and I know from my own staff that right now in our district office at 1040 West Bryn Mawr, the number one issue that we have right now in terms of constituent services are people coming into our office every week and every day who are at risk of eviction, are at risk of their rents going up 200% and 300% in some instances, and others who are being displaced because their buildings have been purchased by luxury developers. Last week, I'll tell you a quick story. There was a gentleman in my office who I've seen a couple of times over the last year. My staff has done a phenomenal job at helping him access services and have a roof over his head. But he told us that the most recent tranche didn't work, that his building flipped, and he currently now is living on 115th Street on the far south side of Chicago in a shelter that he could not access on the far north side of Chicago. A year ago, this person was housed on the far north side of Chicago in a warm apartment. And he sat with my staff for 40 minutes trying to get his paperwork together so that he can actually access employment, so that he can pay rent, so that he can move back into the city and hopefully back into the far north side of Chicago. This is one of the most diverse communities in the United States of America. It is a community worth fighting for, and when we have elected officials like Maria and Mayor Johnson and the support of our community stakeholders and everyone in this room that believes in these issues and the hardworking staff, we are actually able to make housing a human right. We are actually make sure that 20 and 30 years from now, this community can continue to be as diverse as it has been for decades and decades for my family and for so many others that have lived here for a long time. So thank you so much for being here this morning, everybody. And at this time, I believe our next speaker will be Cindy Soto.
Hello, everyone. For me, this is truly a joy to be here, witnessing the work that happened on Friday at Humboldt Park and knowing that the people that were at the park, some of them came to this shelter and are actually staying here, the first people to stay in this shelter and see the beauty that it is and really how the community has wrapped its arm around this shelter so that they can have a peaceful, loving place to rest. It is an honor to be here. It is an honor to serve as the Chief Homelessness Officer for the City of Chicago. There is no way that we wouldn't have been able to get to this moment without the support and leadership of Mayor Brandon Johnson and Alderwoman Maria Hatton. Absolutely. The mission that we've been on with the mayor, but also with Maria's leadership as the alderwoman of this ward, has been an incredible mission. And to see this come to life, one of the 5 non-congregate shelters that we're going to be able to break ground under this administration just really demonstrates the commitment that we have to solve homelessness with shelter options and permanent housing that we need across the entire city of Chicago. The North Side is one of the many community areas that people want to live in place and really age in place, and to be able to bring opportunities to this community and ensure that people don't have to live out of the neighborhoods that they consider their home is is really a great joy for the city of Chicago. On Friday, we housed over 85 households that moved into permanent housing or shelters. A lot of them had already moved into housing in September. To get to this moment really requires the leadership and the support from all of our community partners, our stakeholders, our advocates, and for that I want to say thank you to Northside Housing Support Services for being able to bring this moment together and really demonstrate how if we work together from across neighborhoods like Humboldt Park, Rogers Park, across the city, that we can really service everybody who is leaning on us, waiting for us to show up for them. And there is no better leadership that we have currently in the administration that's putting housing and homelessness at the center of the work that we're doing, along with employment services for youth, along with education opportunities, along with bringing down crime rates. The mayor has really dedicated the time to bring leadership and his vision forward, and this is one of the many great events that are going to demonstrate that we are here to deliver for the city of Chicago. With that, I would like to also welcome Commissioner Lisette Castañeda, whose leadership not only is driving the Department of Housing forward, but has also brought her greater awareness of how housing development and affordable housing can have an impact in the city of Chicago. Commissioner, thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Thank you all for the introduction. I'm so happy to be here with you all today. As Alderwoman Haddon put it, you know, there were moments where we weren't sure, but we're here today and we are celebrating the opening of Northside Housing and Supportive Services. The Chicago Department of Housing is proud to have provided funding to Northside to purchase this building outright, ensuring long-term stability for the individuals that it serves. This investment is an example of our commitment to creating sustainable solutions that will continue to benefit our community for years to come. Northside is an essential part of our strategy to address homelessness in a compassionate and comprehensive way. Providing 70 beds for unhoused men, this shelter helps to meet the immediate needs of those experiencing homelessness. But beyond providing shelter, this facility is designed to be a model for future shelters across the city. It represents a shift towards a more dignified and humane care for those in need, with trauma-informed design elements that prioritize the well-being of residents. As Chief Homelessness Officer Soto said, we will have more non-congregate shelters opening as the Department of Housing has put aside a total of $30 million to invest in these shelters. Unlike traditional shelters, clients at this facility are welcome to stay 24 hours a day and enjoy access to staff, meals, and critical services at all times. This is a game changer. It means that people who are seeking shelter here can begin to rebuild their lives without the added pressure of having to leave and return each day. They will have constant access to supportive services, whether it's case management, mental health support, or job training, as well as the dignity of having a place they can truly call their own. I am incredibly proud to be leading a department that is looking at safe and dignified housing, not just in permanent housing and permanent affordable housing, but also in shelters. Northside will also be able to provide on-site 24-hour staff and wraparound services to help clients transition to permanent long-term housing. This holistic approach is critical as it addresses the complex needs that individuals facing homelessness often experience. From healthcare to employment assistance, every individual who walks through these doors will have the opportunity to rebuild their life with what they need to succeed. We are especially proud that this project is opening on this day, nearly 3 years to the day that Northside closed its Preston Bradley Center location in Uptown. It marks the beginning of a new chapter for this organization and the people that will find refuge here. At the Department of Housing, we know that homelessness is not a problem, it is a crisis. This includes families with children, veterans, youth, and individuals with disabilities. It is a crisis that requires urgent action, and we are proud to be part of the Johnson administration that is working to address that. Today, as we cut the ribbon on this facility, we are reaffirming our commitment to ending homelessness in Chicago by expanding shelter options, increasing affordable housing, and ensuring that people who are experiencing homelessness have access to the supportive services that they need. A special thank you to Northside Housing and Supportive Services for your tireless dedication to this mission. A very special thank you to the staff of the Department of Housing, particularly Alicio Loera, Matt Stern, and the incomparable Meredith Stern, who has been pushing this and been working along and has shed a lot of those sweat and tears, no blood. So thank you all, to all of our partners here, and to everyone that has worked so hard to bring this vision to life. And to the people who will be housed here, welcome home. We could not have done this without our incredible partners and without my incredible counterpart at the Department of Family and Support Services, Commissioner Brandy Kanazi.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am Brandy Kanazi, Commissioner for the Department of Family and Support Services. I want to express my gratitude to Mayor Johnson this morning for his commitment to addressing homelessness in Chicago and for housing the people of Chicago, and also to Alderwoman Hatton, whose tireless advocacy makes success like this possible. I would like to thank Executive Director Duncan Ward, Alderman Simpson, and other members of the board and the entire team at Northside Housing for the support and their hard work and thoughtfulness that they have put in to opening and bringing this day possible. I also need to specifically thank Commissioner Castaneda, as well as her team, Meredith Muir, Matt Stern, and the Department of Housing. Without your unwavering support, thank you for walking us through this process. This was our first development deal, and so we were a little nervous, but thank you all for getting us here today. But specifically to my team at DFSS, Amy Cornell, Kim Howard, Maura McCauley, and Kim Howard, I want to thank you all. We did it, right? We weren't sure about development, and we did this, and we're cutting the ribbon today. So just thank you all for everything you do. I'm grateful to stand before you all this morning and speak to the progress that the City of Chicago is making in addressing homelessness. This facility and the partnerships like it that make it possible represent a new era in how we provide services to Chicago's most vulnerable. This is the first of 5 projects that will add 1,000 beds to our shelter system, getting us closer than ever before to making sure that there is a bed for everyone that needs it. The majority of unhoused people in Chicago are Black, single men, and this place will provide 70 beds for men that are available to this group of individuals. Addressing homelessness requires an all-hands-on-deck approach, and we would not be here today without the collaboration between DFSS and the Department of Housing through this non-congregate shelter acquisition program and the many delegate agency partners that we work with to provide shelter and support services. These non-congregate shelter projects are redefining what people consider shelter and what shelter looks like. It helps us raise the bar, it helps us restore dignity, and make sure that the people that we serve know that they have a home and that we are working tirelessly for them. This shelter is part of a larger investment the city is making in improving the physical infrastructure of our shelter system to better serve people safely and with dignity through improved accessibility, with privacy, and a trauma-informed design. This new trauma-informed non-congregate shelter model will serve as a blueprint for future shelters. It will change the way we think about how we serve others. This is the first step of a much larger initiative to expand and improve the shelter system across the city. This new model is the result of lessons we learned during the COVID-19 pandemic, when the city had to adapt quickly and utilize hotels as non-congregate shelters to keep people safe and to prevent individuals from dying. A study by the University of Chicago and the Lawndale Christian Legal Center found that those experiencing homelessness were sheltering in these hotels with the addition of on-site services, experienced significant improvements in their medical and physical health systems, and increased rate of transitioning to permanent housing. We applied these lessons learned to this location today. Not only will this new shelter offer improved safety and privacy to residents in a non-congregate setting, but clients will have 24/7 support and on-site wraparound services to help them transition to long-term housing. That's our goal. We want everyone to have a home of their own. Shelter is one step on this journey, but it's not the last stop. Clients can access the space any time of the day, allowing them autonomy and self-determination to meet their day-to-day needs, along with the dignity and privacy of a space to decompress before they move on to their next state. I want to end by saying that we are thrilled to be able to do this work and to be in partnership with the Rogers Park community. This is such an amazing space, and we have just been grateful for the partnership, and it's like family. And so we are just here to celebrate our family today. So can't wait to see the great things that Northside Housing will do, and really excited for what's to come. I'm going to turn it over to Duncan Ward, the CEO.
Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today?
Good morning.
Thank you all for coming out. We are very happy to see everyone here. This is the place of healing. This is the place where our men will be safe, secure, and stable to receive housing services, wraparound services. And the great thing about it, they don't have to leave during the day. They receive everything here. Staff is here 24/7. Staff is providing 3 meals a day. Staff is providing mental health services, medical services. So we're extremely happy about that. And with that being said, I want to thank our partners also. Mayor Johnson, thank you for being here, sir. Alderwoman Manhattan, thank you. And to her team, Leslie, Kyle, Shanika, thank you all for being here, and thank you all for your support. To both our commissioners, thank you for being here, and thank you for all your support. And also, Andrea Chapman and Christine Rowley, thank you all for being here. Amy Clancy, we truly appreciate it. I also want to say to the Rogers Park community, thank you for welcoming us. We had, I believe, 4 meetings in advance over the past 3 years, where we had a lot of discussion, and we was able to educate the community about homeless men and the services that they need, and to remove the negative stereotype that they have. So thank you all. Pete Marchese, thank you for leading us over the years with all your help and support. And to our board of directors, Northside Housing, a lot of conversations we had, and thank you all, because we had a lot of tough questions that we had to answer, and we're now here. That's the big picture. We're here. IKEA, thank you so much. They provided the rooms where you see all the good decorations. So I want to give a definitely hand it over to IKEA. And last but not least, the Northside Housing staff. Thank you all. My staff is great. They're going to be providing great services, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to do in the community of Rogers Park. Right now, are there any questions from anyone? We can just go straight to the ribbon right now then. And then we'll answer questions. Thank you all for coming out. The ribbon cutting will be right in the front. Please, appreciate that. Thank you.
Glad you're still on the case. You know, it's supposed to be part 2 of my time.
Not yet, but I hope. We'll see. We got it. They're coming out with it.
I see they service to the side for a little bit. If you're really desperate, I'll do it for like 10 seconds. You can warn me and I'll say 10 seconds, 1, 2, 3. Go. Nope. Wherever the mayor is, I have cut the tape.
Real quick.
Let me hold it like stern. Can I back up some a little bit?
Bag it on up. Sean. So bad.
I'm not going outside until it's absolutely necessary.
Thank you.
I can make sure you look my way now every now and then. Oh, I get it. Mr. Ward. Mr. Ward, do you mind giving us a picture here real quick, sir?
If everybody can move back just one step so we can get everyone out.
Thank you.
Ready to go?
One more time. You got it? You got it? Tell me this way.
Duncan, when it happens, you can move in a bit.
I will. Getting everybody to
Wait a minute.
That's why I asked to sit down. That isn't so easy anymore.
It's gonna hurt getting up.
We'll help you.
Clear some air from the top there.
Yeah. I'm leaning like this. We got it. I got it all in here for me. We come out. That's one more time.
I'm glad I brought 14 today.
While we're waiting for the mayor, people, we're going to do Q&A live, so everybody has a question.
After the ribbon cutting? After the ribbon cutting. As soon as the ribbon is cut, just a few seconds away.
Yeah, he's up there back. They got him for a question out there, it sounds like. Because Mary Ann was running back there to catch it.
He didn't leave.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. How could he miss that for?
This has to be a good picture. It is a bad angle, man. Slender. You're going to figure that out.
Okay, so first shot, you're gonna take a couple quick shots before you cut. So just look into the camera, look at camera one right here. Camera one, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then to my left. Then right here with me. Awesome. Now we're gonna do the cutting. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right.
We'll take questions back inside.
I'm ready.
Yes, okay, so we're going to start with Shia. Again, one question on topic per reporter. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Yes, thank you.
Can you talk to me a little bit about where do migrants fit into this facility? I know there are like 100 plus migrant families in the YMCA nearby. The city has that new program to incorporate traditional homeless with migrants. Will they be part of this shelter?
Well, it's a one shelter system. The whole purpose of the one shelter system was to ensure that we are treating every single human being with dignity. This is something that really speaks to the values of the people of Chicago. We took a crisis that was international and global, both with homelessness as well as global population shift. We have managed that crisis, and then we have built an entire system around it. But the good news is we didn't start in August of 2022. Alderwoman Hatton and, of course, this fine organization have been working hard over time to address the homelessness crisis that has been unfortunately pervasive across the globe. I have a conversation and a meeting with Mayor Karen Bass tomorrow to discuss our one shelter initiative, along with other matters that pertain to providing real dignity for individuals who need housing. So it's a one shelter system. That's exactly what it is. That's what the people of Chicago have required and asked of me, and that's what we have delivered with our DFSS commissioner and our Department of Housing
So
commissioner.
there will be migrants here.
Yes.
Craig, go ahead.
You talked about, or there was talk about 5 shelters. What's the timeline for that?
Yeah, I'm going to turn over to my chief homelessness officer of DFSS or housing. We have a 5-year plan, of course, that we are working through, but Commissioner Castaneda.
So for the other shelters, so part of the money went to the Haven, which was with the Chicago Department of Public Health, and so we broke ground on that earlier this year. And for the other shelters, they have 4 out of 5 have gone through ZBA, and will be getting ready to begin levels of work. They're at various stages. Some have already done acquisition, some plan on doing acquisition early next year, and so we plan on the next 18 months or so to have the rest of the shelters finished.
Thank you.
Question over here. Hi, I'm curious whether...
What's your name?
My name's Sylvan. I'm with the Chicago Tribune.
Hey, thank you for being here.
There will be, thank you, a term limit on the number of days an individual could stay here, and if they could be asked to leave without a connection to permanent housing.
So there is no expiration date. The one shelter system, as by design, is to help people transition into permanent housing. As Commissioner Kanazi has articulated, this is just one step along the journey of complete healing.
So just to add to the
Sure.
comments, we have 154 apartments. So some of the people will go from here directly to apartments. They will then, once they get even more stable, move into their own housing. We help them get Social Security, we help them get unemployment, we help them find jobs, we provide them a CTA pass so they can get to all of those things. So this is really a wraparound situation. This is not a one-off, stay one night and we throw you out and you're homeless again.
Mr. Mayor, I'm Suzanne Hanny of Streetlights. Nice to meet you. My question is, they mentioned 1,000 units of housing within this next 5 years. Can you say any of the other neighborhoods or nonprofits that will be doing this work among the shelters?
So the other shelters that we're working on will support, so it's Franciscan Outreach. We also will be working with Unity Partners, La Casa Norte, and Commissioner, what's the fourth one? Cornerstone.
And what neighborhoods are these going to be?
There are different neighborhoods across the city where they're able to, one, we had to get zoning approval, as the commissioner stated, and then shelter acquisition. And so purchasing the property and then doing the redevelopment and any construction necessary.
So are they in their original neighborhoods, or did they buy old
It depends.
hotels in other neighborhoods?
Some are able to stay in their neighborhoods if they can find the property, and some locations are going to other communities where they can find the appropriate shelter. A lot of it is, when you think about it, the grants we received are only for services. And so this is the very first time for the city of Chicago that we actually have infrastructure dollars to actually focus on converting shelters, making sure that we have accessibility, that we can actually expand. So some of it is improving the kitchens, our case management service area, just places to make it more welcoming, inviting, and to expand the types of services we're able to offer.
Thank you for those questions.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
Tomorrow, the City Council's Finance and Budget Committees are set to vote on your revised budget proposal that would raise taxes a total of $234 million on Chicagoans, including a $68.5 million property tax. Why is that the right plan for Chicago?
Well, the right plan for Chicago is that we invest in them. Youth, employment, and workforce. As what was expressed today, the number of young people that are unhoused is significant. 20,000 young people roughly. Just those are the ones that we can account for in our public schools. The number of LGBTQ plus young people that are unhoused, that's what this budget speaks to. It also speaks to the expansion and delivery of mental health and behavioral health services, including building more affordable homes. We've already built roughly 3,600, right around 3,600 affordable homes. That number will continue. As Commissioner Kanazi has articulated, the $1.25 billion bond investment is the largest investment for economic development and housing in the history of Chicago. This budget also releases well over $500 million in the TIF surplus. First mayor to pull that lever to ensure that our taxing bodies actually benefit from our TIFs. Here's the other thing that's important in this budget, is that clearly there are a lot of human needs, and these human needs are rights. And so one of the other things that's important about making sure that we meet the human needs of individuals is that we don't cut services and lay people off. You know, a budget that would lay off workers and cut services is just, you know, one that should not be tolerated by any Chicagoan. And I know these are difficult financial times, not just in Chicago, but around the globe. A $3 billion deficit projected for the state of Illinois, a $2.7 billion projection of a deficit for Maryland. This is a challenge all over the country. What the city of Chicago is doing is we're putting our hand up first. We're jumping to the front of the line and saying that we have to fight for progressive revenue. That's what's right about this budget. It invests in people. We don't cut services and lay people off. And my team is working regularly with the governor's team to find progressive revenue. Had we passed Bring Chicago Home, that would have been $100 million for this issue. Had the PP, the personal property replacement tax, had that not been expired, that's $162 million that was a corporate giveaway, right? And so these are the things that my administration will continue to work through on behalf of the people of Chicago. Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, a year ago, the city was in a position where it was scrambling to get people off the street, to find housing for new arrivals. Now the city is in a position where it's sort of getting out of that business of sheltering migrants. Are you at all concerned that the city's One Shelter initiative may fall short, that you may end up with people out on the street come winter?
So we're not getting out of the business of housing people. I mean, we're at a ribbon cutting today, which is the business of housing people. And congratulations to this community for putting their arms around the people of Chicago. And this is something that's very important. Thank you for this question. Our city, a year ago, we were under attack by the governor of Texas, right? I mean, you all covered this, sending busloads of people without any support from the federal government. And then when we try to provide structure around that, because not a single bus has arrived in the city of Chicago since last December, right? Then he sent an entire airplane. Like that, I mean, I don't want to sound like overly emotional in this regard, but that's not a way to treat human beings. It's not. And so what we have done in the city of Chicago, as was articulated by Commissioner Castaneda, 70% or so roughly of those who are unhoused are black families. We're responding and showing up to a need that black families have needed for some time and have been ignored. A one shelter system here, first time in our city's history, the first time we're actually providing infrastructure dollars to respond to the unhoused. We are not getting out of the business of not meeting the human needs of the people of Chicago. I actually got elected to do the opposite, which is to actually invest in people where there's youth and workforce employment, mental and behavioral health services, building more homes, affordable homes, and of course making sure that our communities are safer. Homicides continue to go down, shootings continue to go down. I would dare say that since we've been in office for the first 18 months, you can't point to a single issue that I inherited that got worse under my leadership. In fact, because we have been partners with 49th Ward to the 15th Ward and everywhere else in between to ensure that we are showing up for the people of Chicago. And then I think to the last part of your question, the city of Chicago, we rose above those attacks that came from the border. We don't shrink under times of pressure. We actually get big and we get large because our heart is big enough to handle fighting for reparations and fighting to make sure that we always remain a welcoming city. Thank you for that question.
I want to ask you about Jason Lee. You have a senior advisor.
I think we were trying to focus on on-topic questions. And what I'll do is, Craig, I promise you this, if you can just hold off 2 more days, I will be there. So I would answer that question. Are there any other?
Your top aide, you voted in.
Okay. Are there, if there, okay. Okay, just, okay, hold on a second. Just try not to shout at me, okay? Could you, I got you, just try not to shout. What we were trying to do was focus on top questions, but just relax, okay, I promise you. The budget question, I believe, is relatable because we are responding to investments, right? So this is what I'll do. Are there any other on-topic questions? Just because I want to make sure that the people of Chicago who have been calling for these type of investments for decades, that we just don't miss that story, okay? So just give me a second. Just give me a second. I got you. Can you just hold for a second, okay, please? Could you do that for me? Are there any other on-topic questions? Yes, Shia.
Do you worry that the Democratic response to Trump's immigration actions won't be as forceful as it was.
Okay, Shia, respectfully, I'm going to count that as off topic, but I'm happy.
Celebration?
Well, we're talking about the shelter system, okay.
Gotcha.
All right, so are there any other questions related to this shelter?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
As it relates to
Sure.
sheltering people in Chicago.
Yes.
I appreciate the context, Mayor. My question, though, was, are you concerned that
No.
we're still bed space short, thousands of beds short?
I thought I'd answer that when I talked about, for the first time in the history of Chicago, we have actually shown it for the people of Chicago. Do we need to do more? I mean, I think you know the answer to that. I think all of us are saying we have to do more. You know, I mean, look, this city did not get in this condition overnight. It's not going to change in 18 months. So if you're asking me with all that context, should we do more? We will do more. Senator Mike Simmons was here. Again, we're working with the governor's staff. I thought I was explicit. We're fighting for progressive revenue. We're working collaboratively to have more revenue to respond to these needs. So I'm grateful for the start, and yes, we will continue to do more. All right, now, are there any individuals that have an off-topic question? Okay, let's start here, and then we'll work our way around. Yes, sir, what's your name?
Chris with CBS.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, Mayor. Can you just give us a progress report of where things are at between you and council? Where are you at on votes? Where is the temperature at the moment?
Yeah, well, the temperature outside is seasonably warm, so I'm really grateful that the Lord has answered our prayers. And just by the way, I think one person described 50 degrees as not cold. That is only in Chicago where 50 degrees is not considered cold. Look, it's been a very new process for our city council members. I'm sure Alderman Dick could certainly speak to this. We have opened up the process in a way that has revolutionized how we move budgets forward. I feel really good about the collaborative efforts, the city council members who are showing up with ideas. There are some ideas that some have presented that I don't necessarily think is the best pathway forward. But what I can say is that this effort is ongoing, and I have a great deal of confidence in the members of city council who are showing up in this moment in very creative ways and very collaborative ways to respond to the needs that people have. So, the vote, the first step, of course, is tomorrow, but I am tremendously grateful that there are so many members of city council who are open to this process and have provided great feedback so far.
Do you think you'll get to the finish line by Friday?
I mean, that is certainly the effort of my administration. I said I'm going to do my job and present a balanced budget. Again, I'm grateful to the members of city council who have shown up with a great deal of ideas. We've just said that we have to continue to make critical investments without cutting services and laying people off. I think that's important for the people of Chicago. Okay, you're welcome. Of course.
So, an election expert that I spoke to said if somebody votes in another state, they have to declare residency in that other state to legally vote. Jason Lee voted in Houston, Texas, in this past November election, which would invalidate him as a city employee. Are you concerned, first of all, that your senior advisor would do this? And second of all, what are the recriminations for not being a Chicago resident and being a senior advisor?
Well, look, this is a matter that is being looked into. As you know, this is a personal element, and I don't discuss those type of personal dynamics publicly. But what I can say is that this is something that is being looked into, and as that process continues to unfold and play out, decisions and conclusions will be made based upon how this particular matter is not only underscored, but what is uncovered as a result of it being looked into.
And who is looking into it?
So that's a good question. So as I understand, this will be the responsibility of the state of Texas to make some level of determination. And again, it's a personal dynamic, and as it continues to unfold, we're happy to be able to respond in the coming days.
Are you disappointed?
Well, look, it's a matter that is being looked into right now, and what comes of this is something that we'll have to address as that information becomes more available.
Wouldn't that message that it sends to people that your top advisor wouldn't even vote in the city of Chicago? Doesn't that send a message?
Well, again, this is a personal matter that is being looked into, and as that information continues to unfold, then conclusions can be drawn, and I'm happy to respond to them once a full diagnostic is done.
Mayor, have you spoken to
Just-
Jason Lee about this?
hold on a second, hold on.
Continue to have
Heather?
your confidence as your senior advisor while this probe investigation continues?
Well, as you know, Jason and I go back a little bit, and he has been, I know, a tremendous advocate for working people in this city. He has a tremendous resume of supporting labor. Was an intricate part in building an apparatus for Secretary of State Clinton as she ran for president. Has been a part of many different efforts on the front line to ensure that working people and our values are front and center. What I do know about Jason is that he comes from a legacy of leadership and organizing on behalf of working people. And I know his value system in that regard, and I'm very, very much appreciative of him.
Trump question?
Okay, sure.
Do
You said a Trump question?
worry- Do you worry that the Democratic response to Trump's actions on immigration won't be as forceful this time as Democrats were during his first term because of the shift in?
Well, look, I think that's an excellent question. Here's what's important in this moment. The president-elect has a tremendous disdain for public accommodations, right? So it's not just his unwillingness to work with the current president and the current Congress to actually pass substantive immigration reform policy. He could do that in his position now if he would just simply encourage those House members that he forcefully press not to cooperate with the current administration. And if he doesn't do it now, he'll certainly have the ability, with the control of the Senate and the control of the House, as well as the judicial branch of government, to actually move policy. My hope, I don't worry. I want you all to just understand that I don't sit up all night and worry. I just don't find that to be very productive. What I'm hopeful for, though, is that he would use this power to actually bring substantive transformation around a whole host of things. If there's one thing that I will say that we should pay close attention to, it's not just whether or not he'll use and exercise his power to move policy, but we should also be thinking about his disdain and his temperament towards public education. He wants to eliminate and eradicate the Department of Education. That is incredibly dangerous, right? Because if we think about working people across this city and across this country who rely upon public education, I find it to be an abomination, quite frankly, of the hopes and dreams of all of our ancestors, that he would have such a visceral reaction to something as basic as having public education. Here's the other thing, though. Besides education, and besides whether or not he'll pass substantive policy around immigration reform, we also should be thinking strategically about his position on public housing and affordable housing. At the end of his first term, he began to move efforts to eliminate resources for vouchers so that families can actually afford to live in public housing. What I would ask the president to do is to think about the public housing he's going to have in another couple of weeks. And that every single individual who is seeking public housing in this country, the White House, which is public housing, that should be the standard. Here's the final thing. There's 4 things that we should be thinking about. The final thing is his position around the Department of Justice. As we are working to transform our justice system, one that has had a great deal of animus towards black men in particular, he has an opportunity to actually instruct his DOJ to provide more support for CVI, for youth employment and workforce. I hope he doesn't waste this moment. Here's what Chicagoans can count on from me. I'm going to fight and stand up for working people across this city. The diversity of this city is our strength, whether it's housing, workforce development, education, the right to exist in a city that opens up its arms, the same arms that were surrounding the black Haitian immigrant who fell in love with a Potawatomi woman. That's who we are as a city. We're the greatest love story. And if he decides he wants to work with us, he'll get a chance to work with the greatest power on earth. And that's the power of love. Thank you all very much.
For any of the press who didn't get it, we have a press release with details about the shelter. Any of you who would like to tour the shelter, if you'll sign up over there, we're going to allow a tour of the entire shelter.